In the name of the one holy and living God, amen. I read something last week from Warren Buffett, the eighth richest person in the world. He was speaking at some elite college's commencement ceremony, and he said that with a degree from such and such college, money was probably going to come to these young folks. After all, they had great education. They were clearly hard workers. Money, he said, it will come. But the eighth richest person in the world said that beyond being able to pay your bills and buy a house and have enough money in the bank so that you don't have to worry about a flat tire or getting sick, well, after that, Warren Buffett said money doesn't do much. His advice to these recent graduates was to focus on love, on building relationships. Money, he said, can't buy you love. And at the end of the day, what matters most is who loves you. For Christians, we might have a couple of slight tweaks to that message. We might say that what matters most is who you love and how you share it. And I also would be remiss without pointing out that there's some subtlety here. If you don't have enough to pay your bills for food and shelter, well, what I'm about to say doesn't really work. Because when you don't have enough money to meet your basic human needs, all your efforts, spiritual, emotional, and physical, are focused on that. And it's almost impossible to focus on anything else. It is stressful and terrifying to know that you're one unexpected expense from losing your home or your health. That kind of preoccupation is about survival. I am talking about the kind of financial preoccupation that comes from wanting more than enough. It goes a little like this: I have a place to live, but I wish I had a better place to live. I have enough to eat, but I wish that I could go out to eat at more restaurants. I have a reliable car, but I wish that I had a brand new SUV like my neighbors. As today's gospel calls it, we are discussing today the abundance of possessions. In today's gospel, Jesus tells us to be on guard against all kinds of greed, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions. It's easy to get caught up in greed, especially as Americans, to have too much. And the thing about money, the reason this is a spiritual issue, is that money is a little bit addictive. However much we have, we want just a little bit more. That's what appears to be happening in today's reading. The rich man was fortunate. He had plenty of money. He had land, and he became rich from all that that land produced. In fact, he gives us the saying that we still use today: eat, drink, and be merry. That's all fine. The Bible and Jesus doesn't condemn him for this. Being rich was his good fortune. But one year, he has an especially good harvest. In fact, he has such a good harvest that he runs out of space in his barns. This is the ancient equivalent of what today would be, he maxed out his contribution to his Roth IRA. He ran out of places to put money in his 401k. He has more than enough. But instead of being content with filling his barns and enjoying what he has, he tears down his barns and builds new ones, bigger ones, so that he can keep his whole wonderful harvest all to himself. The option is that he could have filled up his own barns and shared what was left over with others so that they could also eat, drink, and be merry. His sin wasn't being rich. It wasn't even enjoying his life. His sin was greed, because after all, we can't take anything with us when we die. That brings us to St. Francis. Today we celebrate the feast of St. Francis. Later this afternoon, we'll bless animals under the tent in his memory. Francis lived in the 1200s, and just in case you think that this problem of greed is related somehow to being modern Americans, well, it's plagued us since the beginning of time. Francis was born into a wealthy Christian family, but as he became an adult and listened to the message of Jesus in the Gospels, he realized that having that much money was inconsistent with what he believed following Jesus meant. He gave away all the money that he had, much to his parents' dismay. And he began the movement in Christianity that we call the Franciscans, which still asks its followers to practice poverty, obedience, and chastity. Francis believed that nature, and animals in particular, could teach us about radical dependence on God. The birds in the trees and the beasts in the fields, after all, have no place to store extra food. They are fed and housed by the environment. They depend upon God's generous and abundant creation. Francis believed that if we could become more attuned to the natural world, we also could free ourselves from worry and anxiety about possessions and wealth, trusting that God would provide exactly enough for today, and trusting that God's creation would provide enough for tomorrow as well. People who try to capture or trap animals in Africa, people who work for zoos in Asia and Europe and America, say that the ring-tailed monkey is the hardest of all animals to trap. But the Zulu people in southern Africa have been trapping them for centuries, and they've found an amazing, simple way to do so. The method the Zulus use is based on understanding the animal. Their trap is nothing more than a melon growing on the vine. The seeds of that melon are a favorite of the monkey. So what the Zulus do is they cut a very small hole in the melon, just large enough for the monkey to put his hand in, to reach the seeds inside. The monkey, when he finds the melon with this small hole, will reach their hands inside, grab as many seeds as they can, and then start to withdraw it. but they can't because their fist is now larger than the hole. The monkey will pull and tug, screech, and fight the melon for hours, but he can't get free of the trap unless he gives up the seeds, which he refuses to do. Meanwhile, the Zulus just sneak up behind him and grab him. The ring-tailed monkey can't understand that it's only by surrendering a little of what he wants that he will get to keep his freedom. I think that's what Jesus is telling us about wealth. Having money is not a bad thing. In fact, wealth can be used in wonderful ways to enrich our lives and to help others. But if we hold on too tight, if we let our desire for money and comfort consume us, we lose sight of its purpose. And instead of being a tool to help us build relationships with others, it can become a false idol, an illusion of safety, and a trap that keeps us separated and estranged from one another. Jesus, St. Francis, and Warren Buffett all agree on one thing. In the end, money cannot make us happy. Having people who love us and having others to love is what makes life worth living. Amen.